Right. Great. Let's go. Great. Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
Right, perfect. We will just loosen up a little bit. So just have the jo in the hands. Just working through the feet a little bit to loosen up the limbs, the spine, shoulders. And just let the weight of the jo, especially in the arms, just kind of drag the arms down a little bit. Work with the ground. Great, so a little bit of front and back movement. Also, again, just let the arms kind of move a little bit with the jo. This flexible movement with the spine. Let's go a little bit side to side. Perfect, and then into rotation. Right. And then just work now with this kind of coiling, especially the shoulders and the hips. Imagine the kind of center line, the center of the jo, the middle of the jo, is kind of lining up with the center of the body. So that the body really kind of coil and open. So just play with both ways, kind of rolling the arms forward as well. Great, and then just circling around a little bit. Take it as low as comfortable. A little bit bending towards the back of the spine. Just a few one way and then switch the direction. Right. Okay, just a few movements specific for the shoulders. So the first one just be just a little bit kind of shoulder width apart with the hands on the jo. Just open at the thumb here in this kind of position, and just think about raising up, keeping the spine neutral. So this is a little bit on Saturday for those that were there, but just in case of keeping the spine nice and neutral. Raising and lowering the arms up. Raising. And just work in the opposite direction. You're going to take the jo at the back. Take this case, yeah, the fingers facing out, thumbs pointing towards each other, and just really to soften the front of the shoulders. Just raise the jo as high as you can. Get to that position, hold it, and just play a little bit with, especially the shoulder blades and the front of the shoulder. Just kind of loosening them out a little bit. Great, perfect. And then taking the ends of the jaw like this, just first rolling around. So if you're kind of brushing the bicep across the ear, roll it one way. The other first, just really loosening off the shoulder. Looking one way. Switch to the other direction. So. Great, and just go into the position, hold the arms up to the top, stretch them up as high as you can. Yeah, and then think about sinking the shoulders down, so kind of spreading the shoulders wide. At the same time, think a little bit about pulling the jaw apart with the arms, with the hands. So that. And you keep that tension in the body, keep the shoulders low. Just take one shoulder back a little bit. Just stretching out the shoulders, try and keep the grip nice and strong as well. Bring it back to the center. Again, just settle into the movement, pull the jaw apart a little bit, and then just take the other side, drop it out to the back a little bit. Just activating the shoulder here. Perfect. Again, coming back to neutral, just reset again, drop the shoulders wide. And then just going to take the stretch a little bit further, take this arm now right down, pulling it down. Again, keep that tension on the jaw. So now the upper hand's kind of pulling up, the lower is pulling down. Just try and get into the shoulders a little bit, activate them. Release it to the top, and find that kind of stretch out, and then take the opposite side back. That's it, perfect. Good, and just rolling the shoulders out, nice and loose, 2 circles. Great, and then we'll just take it into the wrist, so just taking it nice, deep, nice, strong grip. Working primarily with the back of the grip, so the little finger, ring finger. Really think about kind of rotating the wrist as well, rotating the forearm. Forearm, wrist, and hand, all kind of spiraling in. Okay, switching this side. I can't remember if we were doing this on Saturday, so it doesn't really matter, but play with this, the side of the arm, the side of the body with the jaw, so say the right side, right hand, and right foot, and just play with the feeling as you do this, especially the outside rotation, this one, when the hands kind of palm up, the jaw's out to the top, out to the side. Think about the pressure coming into the foot. And then in this case, think about shifting it also into the left foot as well. So just play with basically the foot that's aligned with the tip of the jaw, where you're kind of focusing. Think about that. It's just kind of gentle shift, and it's just getting that sense of kind of pressing the weight and linking it with the jaw work as well. So the hand work and the foot pressure. Boom, come together. Boom, together. And you can do this with stepping, or you can just do it with so you can play with it on the spot, just shifting the weight, which can be subtle or kind of obvious, or you can do it with actually physically shifting the feet, moving the feet around. Just play with it here. Just making that connection to the feet. Play with both sides. Once you feel that kind of connection, just start to play with the footwork as well. So kind of stepping forward, stepping back, stepping out to the side. Always trying to link the movement into the footwork. So that's it, great. Yeah. Great. Just make a really small change now. It's just now you're basically alternating the hand this way and play also with the sense kind of rotating the hip. So as you're rotating the jaw, think about that same motion and translating into the hip work, into the hip. And you can experiment it once you've got the connection. Play a little bit with the feet, but really think of in this case about kind of opening the hips out with that change, that change, that change. That's nice. And then again, just make one small shift. You're going to now go to the kind of figure of 8 motion. So you go to a much more circular pattern now. And again, just start to really open out the footwork pattern. Do it. Give the jaw a little bit of freedom as well to kind of, you can shift the movement. There you go. So try and get the feeling of linking this pattern again to the hip work. So that's the kind of key in this case. So think about the kind of feet and hand connection, foot and hand connection. And then once they're kind of connected, start to think about the hips really in the middle, driving the movement. Yeah, very nice. Okay, perfect. So we'll take this into the 6 count and then we'll look later at the 13. So we'll just start with a nice basic form. So really clear 𝒕𝒊𝒏 kind of work. So just going first with the 6, you've got 1 coming up to the top here, 3 with the straight down, going back into the get down, striking the leg, coming back into the command this way. So just go right into it with the 6 count in your own time. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, look specifically now, just at the knees. So the knees are really specific, a really critical joint for in terms of movement practice. And later in terms of going to Kinanagari work, which we'll go to next, the knees being released all the time and being kind of having a kind of bouncy quality to them, being open is really critical, because if they're locked, you won't really get that sense of fluidity through the system. So just play now as you come into the position, or in all of the positions, feel like the knees are constantly open. So you want to be stable, you want to be strong, but you want to have the feeling that there's flexion in the knee. So as you come into the ski work, feel this flexion in the knee, because this is what's going to be able to kind of spring you into the next move. There's flexion in the knee here, this position, flexion in the knee, this position, flexion, this position, this position. Just check in the position, especially the kind of loaded positions, like the striking positions. Just check that the knees are kind of soft, open. Right. That's it. Right, good. Yeah, now think about the same thing for the elbow. So we're constantly in Aikido, we're constantly using these kind of positions where you've got to kind of arc through the elbow. So again, you're looking for the elbow to be kind of constantly kind of softening or softened, open, so that it can kind of flex through and basically press the power out of the hip. So whenever, if you notice in Aikido techniques, or any time when we're doing like weapon work or anything, we're never fully locked out in terms of the joint. So the only time that happens is when usually you're taking ukemi. So when this kind of happens, when the joint's kind of being compromised. So in order for the joint to kind of function, kind of in a way, later you're going to kind of add speed to it and power. Have the feeling that, especially like this kind of position here, you don't be locking out the arm, pushing out the arm. The same way, you don't always kind of close it up in a position where it's kind of, it's just like the kind of bicep doing it. So these two kind of positions you want to kind of avoid in terms of the elbow position. You want to keep this kind of soft open position where the elbow kind of, again, functions like the knee, like a hinge through the movement. So just, again, feel that there's kind of flexion in it, so that it's not that it's tightened, but it's kind of softened and it's open. The joint's constantly open. Even when it's in full extension, it's not kind of locked out. There's still a sense of softness in the joint. Softness in the joint. So just explore it in these different positions. So they're slightly different depending on the gedan or the hayagashi or the ski. There's slightly different kind of demands on the elbow, but that's the same thing. You want to keep the joint system open. Yeah, good. So. Great. Now go to the big joints in the body. What I want you to think about is the hips and the shoulders. So especially now, think about the shoulders need to be stacked on top of the hips. So depending on the position, again, depending on whether it's the ski or the kind of yokomen strike or it's the gerangaishi, the hips are going to be slightly, the shoulders are going to be in a slightly different orientation to the hips. But you always want the sense that they're stacked on top of the hips and not kind of falling out of alignment. So what that means in this kind of case, this one's kind of easy. The shoulders basically lining up with the hips, like a kind of box this way. So you've got like these 4 points basically falling into each other. This position the same. You want the shoulders and the hip basically aligned into a box. If you come through, yeah, this hip's forward, this shoulder's forward. And then here, this kind of sense. So you always want the shoulders basically stacking onto the hip. The tricky one in this case, like the gerangaishi, it's a much deeper movement, but the tendency here is for the shoulders to get drawn out of that contact. So think in this case, especially that the body's engaged forward. So it's not that I'm kind of trying to keep the box kind of straight, but I'm trying to keep the relative position between them the same, and then coming back into it. And again, just study it, especially as you go into like these still points in the kata, these still moments in the kata. Just give yourself a chance to check that the orientation between those. Very easy in the ski weight for the shoulders to get pulled out, lose the hips. So just study a little bit. And it's just that feeling of kind of stacking the body. So it should feel like a kind of, in terms of balance, but it should feel a much easier position that you don't need to hold. That's basically what I'm looking for. I don't want a position that I need to kind of put a lot of strength into it to kind of hold it. I want the body to just settle into itself. So I can just let the ground pull. I can let gravity fall through the body. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Awesome. Good. So the kind of danger in this training now, or looking for this connection, is that I start to lose the extension in the body. So the limbs start to become a bit more contained. So the movements, I get good connection here, I get good relationships here, but the movements themselves lack the extension. So this is fine, but the movements start suddenly to become smaller because I'm basically looking to contain this. So what you want to do is look for that relationship, but add to it a sense that from that I can start to add a little bit more extension out. So focus now on the hands and feet, keeping that relationship in mind, but think now about really finding the extension, keeping this in. So there's a limit obviously to the extension, and the limit is that connection with the shoulder and the hip. The moment I'm pulled out of that relationship, that's too far with my extension. I'm basically stretching the body out. So look for that stability in the shoulder and the hip, but add into it a sense that I'm free to slightly extend out the body now. And again, depending on the movement, I've got either less or more extension, but there's always going to be a sense in the strike that you've got a kind of full extension relative to the movement. This, and then this, yeah, and then yeah, but keep that relationship across the shoulders and the hips as well. Give it a try. So you want good solid grounding, but you want strong extension as well. It's the same story with all the kind of techniques as well. Think of 𝒂𝒄𝒿, classic example. Yeah. Right. That's it. Right. So we'll turn this into a little bit of flowing work. So going to a kind of semi-flowing movement. So what I want you to think about is the strikes being strong. So you've got one strike. Now think about this, the transition from this movement to the strike is one thing. And then the same with the Gedangashi. This transition here into the strike is one thing. But really finish, especially with the Gedangashi, don't go to this form yet where you're kind of rolling through it. Finish the strike with it and then roll back into the command. The key difference with this, why this is not really a true kinonagari form, is that you're still doing this kind of backwards forwards movement, and especially this one. So you've got this kind of backwards draw in, and then coming back into this one. So it preserves that pattern from the kihon that later disappears in the kinonagari, in which case you're going to like this kind of movement. So in this case, it's like a semi kinonagari form, or it's like a nagari form. It's a kind of fluid, semi-fluid form. But in this case, it's got this kind of surging quality. Roll into it, strike. Roll into it, strike. On the command. So those three strikes are now kind of successive strikes. You've got 1, 2, 3, back. Yeah, okay, good. Great. The main principle behind it, or the main thing that's going to make this possible, and to go to the kinonagari next, is this idea of the lower driving the upper. So in terms of the relationships now, what this kind of sense of the hand and the foot, and the knees and the elbows, or the hips and the shoulders, give priority to the lower body, to the lower limb, because what will really destroy the ability to go fast in this is if the upper starts to take over, and the upper starts to lead everything. So this automatically pulls me out of the ground. I mean, it's just logical, right? Everything that I do here will pull me out of the ground. So if this is leading, it's like anything I do in life. So anything I do up here is going to pull me out of the ground if it's not being supported by a strong base. So really think in this case about the prime kind of mover in this case is the lower. So the lower goes first, the upper follows. Lower all the time. So just go all the time to this kind of feeling. As soon as I feel I'm starting in the hands, really slow it down to the point where you can really kind of regain connection with the ground. So go like slow and keep it fluid if you can. If you feel you can't kind of hold the fluid form, go back to the basic, because that's basically where you train it in a kind of nice static pattern, but it's the same principle. Stop, lower body, lower, lower. Nice. Right. Okay, so we'll go to the full 𝒊𝒂𝒐 form, and we'll just break it down into two sections because the changes in the form are kind of specific. So we'll just kind of focus in on them. The first one is now going into the 𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒏𝒈. So we'll do this in two ways. The first one is just going first into the ski, and then straight into the 𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒏𝒈. The key thing with this is that change in the footwork. So you're not pulling back at all now. So you're just thrusting in, pressing into the front leg, changing and striking through with it. So it's a really direct movement. You still find the hands above the head, but you do it now in motion. Find the strike. So just play with that, the ski. Really great combo. So that. Again, really allow the lower body to drive the motion. Let's play down. Okay, yeah. Yeah, also don't worry so much about this being a kind of stepping movement as well. So it's the same with the 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 later, but don't worry about this being like I need to step through with it, because the function of the movement later is a little bit different. So the movement's going to be much more of a closer movement this way. So again, the limits of the limits of the movement are the function of it as well. So it's not really a kind of it's not really a stepping in kind of movement like this. Just think the primary kind of movement with this is the sense of being able to rotate the body out and kind of find this kind of movement. Later is important when we go to kind of when we go to the 13 Kyokata. We'll go there next. But get this sense from here that the primary movement is that shift in the hip, the kind of shift from left to right, and that. That's really the key to this movement. Yeah, good. Nice. Great, so you can stay at that level. That's a kind of fine, and it's, in a way this is like difficult enough. But if you want, you can take this into a full kind of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 movement, in which case you basically feed off the thrust. So you've got now this into this. So you want to feel now as you thrust, the impulse in the thrust takes you into the movement for the 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. It's a kind of tricky movement. You can't really do it slow as well, because I do this kind of stuff. I end up with a kind of pause with it. So play with it in a sense that it's like, and again, the key is how the center is related into the jo. So how you relate to the ground with the feet, and how you're relating to the jo from the hips through the hands is really kind of critical to this. With that to that, and again, just for a really balanced movement. Right from the ground. So it really starts with kind of one fluid motion. Okay. So straight away, notice this. Watch this. Ooh, oh, I'm unstable. I gotta tell me about it. So watch this. Watch this. If I don't ground the ski, this happens. The hips fly up. So it's like it's like throwing a pebble on the seesaw. It's like it bounces one, then bounces to the other movement. In this case, you want to go bam into the ground with both of the movements. You don't want to kind of skip from one movement to the other. So what that means is basically you need to ground that leg in the ground. So you need to ground that leg in the ground. You need to ground the foot into the ground. Boom, boom, bah, this, and then this. So really play with how you're placing the weight, but watch that you don't do something like that, where I'm kind of pushing off the ground to go to the next movement. So feel that you're going underneath the ground with the movement all the time. So the feeling drops, boom, down. The feeling drops, down, down. So that's a really kind of critical point for legs kind of going a little bit faster, a little bit more fluid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, so, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Nice, very nice. Very nice. Okay, great. We'll go to the second part of it. So again, we'll do this in 2 steps. So the key difference now in the Gerangaeshi is that you don't do a kind of pull back with the body and then a kind of pull in and then a step in with it. So the key with this movement now is think about you've got the ground in the front foot from the strike. Think about just kind of opening the back hip back, drawing the jaw through. So you want to get the feeling that this ground in the right foot, and then you can pull the jaw back with the hand and the hip. Ooh, don't do that. But let the jaw, as if you're doing that kind of fix, as if I'm kind of throwing the jaw behind me, this kind of feeling. Without the need to do that, draw the body back. So just think about the foot holding in place. You strike, drop it back. Strike, drop it back. So you're looking for that kind of coordination. So again, it's more direct movement, just like the kind of Hayagashi. Right. So it's kind of instant. Oh. I got a candle here, so it's like you've got the hand on over the candle, and then whoa, it's hot. You go like whoa, you would kind of whip it away. So it's got that kind of whoa. I always think in this case the best image is like is someone grabbing the jaw. Someone comes to grab it, and I'm trying to remove the jaw away from the person. So it's got that kind of quality. Like I'm just trying to remove the jaw from the person grabbing it, which is also an exercise you can try if you like. So get someone really wants to grab the jaw. I really want to grab the jaw, and then you remove it. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Okay, so now you've got to link that movement, this kind of draw back of the jaw, with the sense the hip's going to do a complex thing now, so it's going to roll back. And as you find this movement, it's going to start to roll in for the strike. So just playing again with this flexibility as you're here, you want the hip to roll and start to press forward. So don't worry first about the strike, just worry about that kind of transition of the hip. So again, the basic where you've got like 1, 2, 1, 2, this way, now becomes something a bit more or a lot more supple. So it becomes much more that kind of quality. So think now about walking the heel back, rolling the hip in. But again, don't worry so much about the strike as a kind of, again, it's mostly about coordination in this case. So don't worry so much about power in the strike itself. The key things are kind of flexibility in the hip. Yeah.
It's kind of like
so the main problem with this is this: when you go back with the hip, watch that you don't pull the feeling back. So if the feeling in the body goes back, as I do this, I end up with first like and then so energetically you're doing like this. Woo, woo. In this case, you want to energetically coil the body in. So I'm coiling down to come in. So I'm really thinking about going forward. I'm not thinking about going back at all. So okay, it's like the 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒂. I don't want to go like energetically go back and then go forward. You want to just forward into it. So you're basically just pressing the body in. But it's a tricky thing to do because you're actually pulling the jaw back at the same time as you're doing it. So it's a tricky movement, but just get the feel for the ability to roll the hip back, but have the feeling pressing in. Yeah, just play with that here. That. And it's mostly a feeling. It's not really technical. Create the feeling of pressing in. Right. Yeah, that's it. Good. And then just to complete this movement, what you're going to do now is think about getting back into the 𝒂𝒂𝒗. So you've got that's the same, and now you're going to whip it back into the 𝒂𝒂𝒗. So you're back in the beginning with this. The key thing with this is think about the strike basically making contact. There's two options: either I strike, make contact with the knee, and then it buckles the knee, and I continue back into the 𝒂𝒂𝒗, or the person removes the knee out of the way, the jaw misses, and I just recapture the jaw this way. So there's those two options with it basically. If you don't think about hitting the knee like it's a kind of solid thing. Think that as you hit it, it's basically going to collapse through the structure. It's going to, if you hit it right, it will collapse. That will do that kind of thing. And then I'm basically catching the jaw around the other side. So just imagine in this case that it's going to flow through, either with a strike or that it's kind of missed the target. But either way, I'm going in with an idea that I'm going to strike through it. So it keeps the quality of the strike. But it's just now a little bit, it's now fluid through it. So that. So it's still got the weight of the body behind it. That. Somewhere.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, the main thing, we'll go to the full kata with this. Think about where the real weight of the attack's coming from, which is basically the core of the body and again its relationship with the ground. So if you go back to this kind of connection with the shoulders to the hips and the sense of the weight dropping through it, this is where the real weight of the body is going to come from. If you think about any kind of striking movement or anything that we do like Aikido or something, the power of the movement is not going to come from the limb itself, but from the body and its ability to express the ground with the limb. The same with the Jo all the time. So as soon as I get lost in the idea, like the power's coming out into the Jo, I lose the body in the movement. So go to the full kata now with a kinanagari form, and you can just really slow, but it's the feeling now of that, but try and keep the kind of feeling central in the body, the sense of using the ground, the body dropping into the ground with that strong sense of expansion. But they really work together. The more I've got the ground, the more I can extend out with that kind of energy as well. So feel that kind of grounded expansion. That's kind of what you're looking for. And you're going to add to it a sense of flowing. Perfect. Okay, we're going to take it to the 13 Jo kata. We're just going to split it in two. We're not got a lot of time, we've got 10 minutes or so. So we'll split it into two sections. We're going to go from the beginning up to the hasso and the stripe, and then we'll do the other part of it. But starting it, go right into a kihon again. So in this case, you've got the ski coming off the left side. You go into the hayagaishi, number 2, number 3, drawing up into the block, 4 with the ski, and then 5 rolling into the hasso, and then 6 pressing in with the strike. Just go that far up to 6. That's just part of the kata. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give it a try. If you've got any questions about it, let me know. It's
One,
yes.
2.
Okay.
No. It's
I show you the Bob, go like this, watch this. Don't count that second movement. So now you go ski, 1. Now you go straight into the hayagaishi, 2. Straight into the hayagaishi. Now you go for the block, 3.
oh, the block, right?
You go here, and then 4 is into the ski. So that one. So that first movement, those first 4, you've got 1, 2, hayagaishi, 3 with the high block, 4 with the ski, and then so you go into the hasso. So you're stepping around, rolling up into the hasso for 5, striking down for 6. Just that way. Yeah.
Oh, 1 hayagaishi,
Yeah,
2
right. That's it.
block,
Block.
1.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, the main thing with this, especially when you're learning it as well, and also for everyone as well, but when you do this, especially in the kihon, give yourself time to settle through each movement. So watch this, when I do this, like 2, 3, 4, 5, the brain goes, it forgets everything. So the brain just goes like, didn't register it at all. It's just movement. So really think when you're doing this practice, especially for it, and there's other parts of this, there's other components to it, but imagine you're really settling the body. So the brain can go like, oh, okay, 1. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's like 2 seconds or so. Really give yourself kind of space between the movements. The brain can like register. That was a movement. That's number 1. And the next one. Right. That's it. Yeah, just check with this hasso movement. Also, all of these movements later, they're becoming basically movements against the thrust of the body. In the case of the hasso, this is coming against the strike towards the back of the body, towards the spine, or in the partner practice towards the ribs. But basically, you've got a ski coming into the body. So what you're asking the body to do in this case is roll, face that direction, and then use the jo to block that movement with the hasso. But you don't want to do this basically in like just a kind of twirling movement where there's no real sense that I've covered the body through it. So the main thing is you do this as you rotate, the jo is going to cover the body. So it's covering the body and then the jo can connect into the strike this way. So in this case, you're blocking a ski that comes to the back of the body. You want that jo, you want the hasso to function like a block in this case. Right, that's there we go. Perfect. Good. Okay, great. So we will go to the second part of it. So you're going from number 6 now with the strike. Again, you've got a thrust coming towards the back of the body. So what you're doing now is 7. You're rolling the jo through, making contact here. And then 8, thrusting. 9, drawing back. Now in 10, what you're doing again, you've got a thrust coming towards the body. You're going to step in, use the jo to block, press the body in behind it. And then you've got a high thrust, a roll back. The thrust this way. So I'll do it a few times. If you want to kind of follow along, feel free. So you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coming in, 11, rolling back 12, 13 with a final ski. So position 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. the trickiest movement here in terms of in the kata is the 9 into 10 and 11. So just play with this idea. You're doing something slightly different with the body than we normally do. In the case of the joke, what we're doing normally is like this sense of wedging off the line, blocking, thrusting back in. In this case, you're doing something specific, which is you're wedging right down the center line, and you're using the joke to protect the body. So you've got, in this case, a wedge in, the joke comes first again to cover the body, and then the body's coming down the center line to press through, and then from here, thrusting through, rolling back. But just play the last few minutes, play with this one. So it's a really nice kind of hip work to do as well. So you've got this position, the get down position. The hip opens out, drags the jaw in, and then the body steps through with it. So later this becomes kind of a kinai movement, but for the kind of basic form, you want to come in, roll in, find the feet, and then press out, find the thrust. This way. So you've got opening, the jaw goes across, covers the body straight out, straight from the beginning, in and thrust in. So you've got 10, oh that's wrong, 10, 10, 11.
Is pretty good.
Last minute, just go through the full kata. So just take your time with it. 1 through 13, the full thing. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Eyes contain control movement. You can look for that grounding, look for the extension. Nice control movement. Okay, great, perfect. Go. So we didn't have time to go into the kinai form, so we'll look at it on Wednesday if we can. Or if we can, we will look at it on Wednesday on in a kind of kinai form. So we'll look at the specifics and then try and look at those transitions. They're the similar transitions as the taking the 6 into kinai, but in this case, a little bit specific to this form. But anyway, nice form to practice. 13's a great form. Very versatile movements. Great. Good. Great. Wait. Domo arigato. Gozaimashita.
どうも、ありがとうございました。
Great. Thank you very much.